a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. This being the first Thursday of April, just like the first Thursday of January, February, March, and like the first Thursday of May, June, July, we have the one and only Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. Did we hear cheers? Yay!
Ooh.
That was pretty sucky cheers. Can we do better than that? Yay! That's better. Yeah, I want some enthusiasm out of my audience.
That's right.
Yes. Who is on Monday through Friday on Matt Connarton Unleashed, 95.3 WMNH. And if you're not in New Hampshire, you can go into ipmnation.com or mattconarton.com, and you can click in. You can listen to it live. You can be part of Matt's show. But today, Matt is part of the Dr. Kevin Show, as he always is on the first of the month. And you can be part of this conversation by calling in at 202-570-7057. Again, that's 202-570-7057. Remember, if you want to make change, you got to be part of the conversation. Matt, tell me, how are you these days?
Oh, doing okay. Doing all right. Keeping busy.
Well, that's good. That's good. Is it keeping you out of trouble or just not getting caught?
Well, I've had two encounters with law enforcement this week, actually.
Oh, my. Do tell.
You weren't expecting that answer, were you?
Well, with you, I never know what to expect. So, I try to keep an open mind.
Yes.
And why were you
curious?
The police? Why were you interacting with police? Were you hypnotizing them into forgetting the ticket? Were you raising funds for the policeman's ball? I don't know. Were you caught in
No. None of the above. So,
okay.
so the first time happened. The first one was on Tuesday. So my show went a bit awry on Tuesday in the second hour because I had to play some music, even though it's a talk show, because I was contacted by the New York State Police, and I was very anxious to see why they wanted to speak with me. So I was kind of playing phone tag with a gentleman named Trooper Carmine, who, when I finally got to speak with him after my show, he was very nice, very professional. We had a nice chat. But the reason he was trying to reach me, it turned out, and because I didn't, when he first called me and left me a message, it showed up on my phone as a restricted number, which happens. Like, occasionally I'll get a call from a restricted number, but I check my voicemail at the top of the hour, halfway through my show when I go to break, which I usually don't bother to do. I usually wait until after the show because even during the break, I'm focused on what I'm going to be doing in the second hour. But I saw that I had a call from a restricted number, and I don't know, I had an intuition. Something in my mind just said, check that voicemail. So I checked the voicemail, and it was Trooper Carmine from the New York State Police. And I'm thinking, why does the New York State Police want to speak to me? This is very strange. I do have family in New York. My stepmother's family is out there. My sister Lindsay and her husband and their new baby, they live in New York State. But I was very puzzled, surprised, and a little bit concerned. So I was trying to call him back, and then I'd go back on the air, and then he was trying to call me back, and he and I were playing phone tag. So it turned out I was not in any trouble. And actually, nobody's in any trouble, but do you remember me talking about a gentleman named Crazy Joe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Crazy Joe has been feuding with a gentleman named Billy Painter. And Billy is a friend of mine and a business associate as well. We have a professional relationship, but I also love Billy. I consider him a friend. And he's been on my show a bunch, and I've been on his show. And so he and Crazy Joe have had this online feud going on social media, and they make YouTube videos about each other, and, you know, it's just that kind of thing. But Crazy Joe, who lives in New York State, actually contacted the New York State Police to complain about Billy Painter and his harassment of him online. And the New York State Police, when he did that, I was named as a witness. So he gave the New York State Police my contact information, and that's why Trooper Carmine, who again was very nice, and I started laughing when he told me that he was calling me about Jose Martinez, which is Crazy Joe's real name. I had a good laugh when I realized that's what it was all about, and I was a little bit relieved. We had a nice chat, and he explained to me that, it seemed like just some sort of online rivalry, but, you know, he's got to follow up on it. So he was following up on it, and so we had a nice chat. But, that was pretty great. By the way, Crazy Joe has also reported Billy Painter to the FBI. I was not apparently named as a witness in that case because the FBI has not yet contacted me, but they did contact Billy. Crazy Joe has also called his local police department to complain about Christian, my sort of quasi-adopted son, to complain about him as well. And he got a call from the local police department where Crazy Joe lives. So, so that was pretty interesting on Tuesday.
It sounds fascinating. I'm disappointed that you didn't get a call from the FBI.
I am too. That would have been fun. I would have loved to have heard from Scully and Mulder, maybe.
Exactly who I was thinking. That's who I was thinking. Scully and Mulder. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that would have been an out-of-this-world conversation, I'm sure. But
no pun intended.
That's right. That was Tuesday. And then today I got pulled over, but that was no big deal. I didn't get a ticket or anything. I just I touched my phone, and an officer saw me touch my phone. And, of course, New Hampshire is hands-free, so I got pulled over, and he just said, you can't do that. You got to be hands-free. It's like, okay, well, whatever. That was it. But not nearly as interesting as the talking with the New York State Police.
Now, let's be nice to the local boys. You're going to give them an inferiority complex.
Yes, and that officer was very nice. So, and it was very quick. Yeah, he saw me touch my phone because, I don't text and drive. I don't actually pick up my phone and use it while I'm driving. I know better. But it was sitting in the cradle on the dashboard charging. And, I do have a habit of sometimes if I'm at a stoplight, if I'm at an intersection where there's traffic and I know I'm going to be there for a minute, I might just look to see, check my email, check my Facebook notifications, whatever. So he saw me tap the phone, and I guess from where he was, he couldn't tell if I actually just tapped it or if I actually picked it up. And he asked me, he said, "Did you actually have your phone in your hand?" I said, No, I left it in the cradle. I just tapped it. And so he was very nice. And, I haven't had a ticket in like 2 decades. So I was out of there pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I had an interaction with a police officer week before last myself.
You did?
Yeah. Speaking of which, mine ran a slightly different tone because a slightly different tone. So,
yeah,
Daniel Webster Highway in Nashua.
Yes.
So I'm driving in the middle lane up towards Spitbrook and Daniel Webster, where there's a red light, and there's, I know there are people listening to the show, and they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. But it's a 3-lane each way little mini city highway. more or less. And
Yeah.
I'm in the middle lane, pulling up kind of slowly because the light's red and there's cars in front of me. And I'm just trying to pull up to stop and wait for the light to turn green. And somebody in a big old truck decided they didn't like being in the longer lane to my left and pulled out and hit me in my new car.
Oh, no. Oh.
And so anyways, and I, being stupid, because they just hit like the back rear panel. And, Mercedes are made like tanks. So, they left a little dent, but, they were at a dead stop pulling out. They had a big old 2008 truck. But, and I just say this as an explanation, the guy didn't speak English, was not his first language. So he had a hard time communicating to me, and he, but uninsured, driving his daughter's truck. And I was just like, okay, give me your registration. I took a picture of the license plate. I was stupid. I didn't take a picture of his driver's license. And I should have called the police, but I'm like, I'm on the way somewhere. I'm meeting a friend for lunch. The car's drivable. He has no insurance. I'm going to have to file this claim. So I went on to file it. So I'm thinking, why would I tie up a police officer's time for this kind of fender bender where we both drove over to the parking lot, and not your average Joe's big parking lot, and parked and, exchanged information? Like, why call? Well, my insurance company was not happy with that decision.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're like, well,
they like to have a police report. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do lunch. I go over to the police department to file the report. They can't file the report because I didn't call them. I have to go on to the state website, which if you've ever gone on to the state of New Hampshire's website to file a police report, they make it damn near impossible to find. And then when you find it, you can't just fill it in and send it. You have to print it out. You have to draw a drawing, and you have to snail mail it. Like, are they still using horse and carriages, when the legislature tries to go in and take away our voting rights, which they're trying to do again here in New Hampshire? Of course. Good old, Anyways, moving right along. So, but I got to the police station to try to file it, and they called an officer in that had to come in because it was like a Saturday, and had to come in off driving around because they weren't in the police station to tell me he couldn't take my report. So, it took a third of my day to go through all of that. And, anyways, I actually have been without the car, and it's been great for I walked to physical therapy. Well, that's 2.5 miles each way. I walked to my massage twice. Well, that's over 2 miles each way. I walked to the grocery store and loaded up bags, and that's, 1.5 miles each way. I've been putting 10 to 12 miles on my body every day since the car's been in the shop to be fixed.
Yeah. Why is it taking so long for the car to get fixed?
It took about 10 days.
Wow.
It has to be evaluated. Then they have to get the approval for the claim, and then they have to see if there's any parts that they need, and they have to be ordered, and then they have to do it. But they called me today and just told me that the car is ready now, they told me it wasn't going to be ready till the 12th. So it was actually a little over. It was eight days. So it was 8 days I was without the car.
Wow.
Yep. And I stupidly, because Jeff and I used to have 3 cars, because I had my winter car and I had the Mustang as my summer car. But when Jeff's car died and I just let him have my other car, my winter car, and I traded the Mustang for the Mercedes, I was like, when we had the 3 cars, I'm like, I don't need renter insurance. I don't need car rental insurance. We got 3 cars. If one of them goes in, we got another car.
Right,
but I forgot to add it back in when we went down to 2 cars.
And I see.
I'm like, I'm not going to friggin' pay a rent-a-car fee that's going to sit in my garage 80% of the time. I'm not too prissy to walk. So, of course, we know I walk everywhere whenever I can. So,
yeah.
Now let's move on to what's going on in the larger world now that we've shared our police stories and our audience is completely bored.
I need to ask you, before I forget, though, I do need to ask you something, and this is completely, this is going to sound completely out of left field, but John Hopwood was on my show today, and as we know, you and John Hopwood went to high school together. He wanted me to ask you about Edward X. Young, the actor, the B-movie actor, who apparently also went to school with you gentlemen. Do you remember Edward X. Young?
I remember Ed Young. I don't remember him well. We weren't close. I think he was a year older than I was. I think he was a grade ahead of me. But I remember Ed Young. I didn't know he was a great B-movie actor.
Yeah, I don't remember what he's been in, but apparently he's been in some stuff. And John said I should ask you about him if you remembered him.
I remember him. I remember him vaguely. If I took out a yearbook and looked at a picture, I might remember him more. But he certainly wasn't part of my do run crowd.
Yeah,
I ran with a different group of people. They're all.
Who did you run? Who did you run with? Were you in a street gang?
Nah, I actually didn't have a lot of friends in high school. I transferred in my sophomore year, and then I graduated early, so I wasn't there all that long, and I fought a lot with administration and teachers, but always got excellent grades, and graduated early, even though they told me that they didn't have early graduation. I'm like, so flunk me. I've already been accepted into college. I have all the credits I need to graduate. Figure it out. I'm not coming back, and I didn't. Because I had an offer to take a full-time job. So I started working full-time when I was 17 and going to school. I was like, I'm not sitting around in this 3-ring circus so you can give me an attendance grade. I don't really give a shit. Once I start college, I don't care what you do to my GPA.
Right.
I thought that I was not a big fan of the school I went to in Manchester. It had a big credibility. It had a big credibility issue with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my English teachers, English was not their first language.
Understood.
Not a good choice. Yeah. On that note, when we come back, we're going to talk about what's going on in the world versus just Matt's and my world. But it's always lovely to catch up with you, Matt. And we'll see what we're talking about these days on Matt Connarton Unleashed.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. I'm on with Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. You can listen to Matt Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. on WMNH 95.3. Or you can go to mattconnerton.com or IPMNation.com. Tune into the show through the internet. Ask your questions. And you can ask your questions here by calling 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So, what's been the hot topics on your show? Besides getting cozy with the New York State Police.
Yes. Well, Ukraine, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been number one by far. That's what we've discussed the most. Actually, we had a kind of an intense show today. In the second hour, we had some Ukrainian immigrants with us. They're American citizens, but so they're not people who fled Ukraine recently. Although we did hope to get a couple of those folks on too, who are in the area, who did leave Ukraine recently. But we did have some Ukrainian immigrants on the show. People who have friends and family still back home in Ukraine, and it was interesting to hear their perspective on it. And I admire their spirit and their optimism and their attitude that the Russians will not win. But it was interesting. A couple of them were high school students. Just young people who, but they still remember, what growing up. Well, not growing up, but they're very early years being in Ukraine. But that was pretty interesting, and we're going to do that again soon. We're going to have some of those folks on again. But, it was a pretty interesting second hour today. But that's been the dominant subject on my show. And anything Cold War related has always been fascinating to me anyway. And this is really just an extension of the Cold War in many respects. So, I'm into it. It's what I've been most heavily focused on my program.
So the Cold War is heating up, as they like to say.
Yeah.
So you follow it. You historically you've been historically following it for a while. It's always been an interest of yours. Give us an assessment. Where do you think things stand right now, and what, if anything, short of being murdered, is going to stop Putin?
Well, I was hopeful for a little while that maybe there was a chance that there would be some sort of a peaceful resolution. Obviously, things are going terribly for the Russians. I mean, things are going terribly for the Ukrainians, too, in the fact that, their country is being reduced to rubble. But everything that could possibly go wrong for the Russians seems to be going wrong. I always say I think that what Putin had in mind was he really believed that this would be easy. I think he thought that, just roll the tanks in and then, 72 hours later, he'd be able to roll them back out, roll in, overtake the Ukrainian military. And, the Ukrainians will be so happy to be back as part of Russia. And, and it would be that simple. And then either oust Zelensky and install a puppet regime, or perhaps, Zelensky remains in power, but Ukraine is forced to become a client state of Russia, somewhat like Belarus has become, something like that. I think that's what Putin had in mind, and that's not what he's gotten. And the Ukrainians are fighting back, and I think there's, unfortunately, I don't at this point believe that there's going to be, so Putin has reason to want to come to the bargaining table and maybe negotiate some sort of a peaceful resolution to this, something where he can still save face and declare victory and leave, as they say. but I'm becoming increasingly skeptical, even though, in Hungary, where they were hosting the peace talks, there was some optimism, but I think that optimism has faded because now, after what the Russians did, these terrible atrocities, these war crimes, and they're definitely war crimes, and I believe it's genocide, what they've done in Bucha is so barbaric, and the Russians are claiming that it's all a false flag and that it's all Ukrainian propaganda, and they just lie, and they just lie and lie and lie. So I believe these diplomatic talks, they're just playing for time. They're not really interested in peace and resolving this. And so I think what's probably going to happen is this is going to go on for several years. The Ukrainians are not going to give up. They're not going to give in. And Putin seems determined to, keep trying at this. And I think Putin is probably going to be mired in this for the rest of his life. He's almost 70 years old in a country where Russians, at least Russian males, don't typically live past 72. Life expectancy there is not great. And he's probably going to be spending the rest of his life mired in Ukraine and totally bogged down there. But, the Ukrainians are not going to give in, and I do think this is going to drag on for a very long time.
So, hypothetically, let's say Putin drops dead of a heart attack tomorrow. Suspicious origins or not. Does that give Russia the excuse to pull out and still save face in some way? Or is the top oligarch just going to take Putin's place and feel like this war goes on? What do you think?
Oh, no, I firmly believe if anything happens to Putin, this war ends immediately. I cannot imagine there's anyone else. I don't think there's anyone on earth other than Vladimir Putin who thinks that this was a good idea. And actually, I don't think Putin even thinks that. I think Putin probably, if he had it to do over again, he wouldn't have done it. Like I said, I think he thought it was going to be easy. I think he thought, to borrow a phrase from American history, I think he thought that we would be greeted as liberators, or they would be greeted as liberators in Ukraine. No, if something happens to Putin, I think this war ends, and there will be a massive and swift course correction in Russian foreign policy. At least I would hope so. I can't imagine anyone thinks this is still a good idea watching what has happened and how badly this is going for the Russians.
Now, Zelensky has been asking for Russia to be taken off the UN Security Council. And now we're crying war crimes, which are completely justified. Is that going to happen?
I don't know. I know, well, they're out of the, what is it, the Human Rights Council or Human Rights Commission, or I forget what it's called exactly, that part of the UN. I don't know if they're going to be kicked out of the UN entirely. I don't know if it's even productive, but yeah, they should be. I mean, whatever we can do to them without getting us into a direct military conflict, we should do. Obviously there's European economies that, we have to be careful not to completely wreck one of our NATO allies' economies. There's some concerns there. But no, I mean, we need to do as much damage as we can do to Russia beyond what Putin has inflicted himself. I mean, one of the terrible miscalculations, one of the many that Putin has made is in doing this, because of the sanctions that we've levied, he took generations, I mean, really 3 decades worth of building, of economic growth, of integrating the Russian economy into the world, 3 decades of it after the fall of the Soviet Union. And he just kind of flushed it down the toilet in a matter of days. And again, if he had it to do over again, I'm sure he would not if he had had any idea that the Ukrainians would fight as hard as they're fighting. But no, I think we should continue to do whatever we can to damage the Russians and continue to grind their economy into dust, which is what's happening. But we'll just have to keep adding more things to the list as Putin continues to dig in.
Okay, so we're going to move away from that conversation. Thoughts, ideas on any of the shenanigans or the actual outcome of who our next Supreme Court justice is going to be?
Oh, well, the shenanigans are embarrassing. People like Marsha Blackburn and Ted Cruz are embarrassing. But obviously she's being confirmed, and that's, I don't think it was ever in doubt, really. She had been confirmed 3 previous times to lower court positions. And so she was, a few Republicans, of course, did vote for her confirmation today, like Lisa Murkowski and who else? Mitt Romney did, and
Susan
one
Collins.
or two others. Susan Collins, thank you. Yeah, so
yep.
It was performative from the beginning. I mean, she was a great pick, great candidate, and so it's great to see the first Black American woman on the Supreme Court. I think it's phenomenal, and but of course the questions she was asked by some Republicans were absurd, and it was a circus, and but that seems to be what we can expect with these Supreme Court justice nominations and the hearings that occur around them. It's rarely not a circus anymore. So that's just where we are with our politics.
So Clarence Thomas and Ginny Thomas, is it going to, she, by rights, should be getting hauled in to be interviewed by the January 6th committee. Being married to a Supreme Court justice does not give her legal immunity.
No. Yeah, she should be. And he should recuse himself from any cases going forward that have anything to do with January 6th. I don't know if he'll do that. He's recused himself from other things in the past, so he knows how to do it. He should recuse himself from anything involving January 6th. I'm sure he, we know where he is politically, and he is probably fine with his wife's efforts to help subvert the election. I can't imagine he has any problem with any of it because, he probably thinks, it's all doing God's work, because God wants Trump to be president. So, I'm sure that's how he feels about it. So he probably doesn't have any problem with anything that she's done. And they probably even had conversations about it, and he probably encouraged it. But he absolutely should recuse himself from any future cases regarding January 6th. I don't know that he will, though. I'm skeptical that he will, but he certainly should. And there may be something that Congress can pass, a code of conduct that the Supreme Court has to follow, so that, because there currently is none. But I don't know if they'll be able to do that, but I hope that they do. And I hope that Justice John Roberts has a conversation with Clarence Thomas about this. I don't know that he will, but he should.
Well, he came out in a recent vote that put a Trump-era act back into play, limiting the state's abilities around the Clean Water Act, where the Chief Justice actually sided with, quote-unquote, the liberals, and also questioned the need to eliminate the shadow docket, which I know is a favorite pain in your backsides. But that still only is 4-5 with the shadow docket. But him coming out, what do you think of that? Is it going to give it any more weight, or?
Well, John, hopefully. I mean, John Roberts, he's actually sided with the liberals on a number of things over the years, in a long tradition of conservative nominated and appointed judges who ended up not being quite as conservative as some people had hoped or expected. And, I think on more than one occasion, in fact, John Roberts can be credited with saving the Affordable Care Act when he has voted with the liberals on the court. you never know. You never know with him. I mean, we know where Clarence Thomas stands. You don't always know where John Roberts stands. I think he's got some integrity, and I don't think he's particularly partisan. And I appreciate that about him. So you just never know. So I'm glad that he's, if we have to have a conservative Chief Justice, I'm glad that it's him. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost put him more in the conservative side of moderate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I guess part of this is I don't know. I don't understand. And you may have a better understanding than this. What, if any, extra powers does it give him to be the Chief Justice? Like, what actually comes with the job besides a longer title?
I'm not sure that really that much does, other than I think he's sort of in charge of setting the agenda, and when they're going to hear certain cases and some procedural things. But, that's a good question you raised, Dr. Kevin, because I'm not sure. I don't know enough to say exactly what that gets him, other than he kind of sets the agenda, I think, and sets the timetable for things. And I'm sure he gets to make some decisions administratively that we're not really aware of. But I honestly don't know exactly, to be honest with you. I'm not really sure. It's a great question. I might have to look that up, because now that you've mentioned that, I'm rather curious about it.
Yeah, see, and I know what I'm doing. Next month when you come on, you're going to know all about it, and then you're going to tell me, and I don't have to.
Yes. There you go.
I know how this works.
Yeah.
So, they have impeached Supreme Court justices. If stuff continues to come out that Clarence Thomas we will be back for the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show right after these commercials.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show here on OMTimes. This is the first Thursday of the month. Is my Thursday with none other than Matt Connarton from Matt Connarton Unleashed. You can hear Matt on 95.3 WMNH, or you can go to IPMNation.com or MattConnarton.com. Listen to his drive time show, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can reach out and be part of his conversation. If you want to be part of this conversation today, it is not too late. You can pick up your phone right now and dial 202-570-7057 and be part of this conversation. So I know you know where my question was leading.
I think so.
How much, I mean, we have impeached Supreme Court justices before. They can be impeached. If he is found to play an active role in trying to overthrow the government, I would think that would be an impeachable offense.
I would think so, yes.
Okay. Any thoughts on that? Do you think that has any possibility? You think that has zero possibility? I mean, there's lots of stuff.
It's not going to. That's not going to happen. No, it's not. I mean, it would have to be something pretty damning. It would have to be quite a smoking gun, and Democrats would have to be. I mean, look, I'm not. I certainly lean more left than right, but I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an independent. And one of the things that bothers me about the Democratic Party is their weakness. Republicans are ruthless. Democrats are not. And I don't think that they have the stomach or the stones necessary to actually attempt to impeach Clarence Thomas. So that's just not going to happen. I mean, look, we don't even know if he's going to recuse himself on future January 6th cases, let alone are they going to be able to impeach him. So, no, I don't. It would be fascinating to see, but I just don't think it's going to happen. No, I think approaching zero in terms of the odds of something like that.
Okay. I just wanted to throw it out there because obviously the word has showed up and it depends, and there's certainly not enough of a smoking gun right now to even go down there. I'm just curious. Yeah. It would be somehow a fitting, there would be somehow a justice to forcing off Thomas off the Supreme Court and having it replaced by a Democratic president. Just saying.
Yeah.
But moving along, we've talked about the Ukraine. We've talked about our new Supreme Court justice incoming, first black woman ever. What, if anything else, has been going on in the conversations that you think is noteworthy that's been going on in the world? You're doing 10 hours a week on air. I can't imagine all of it was spent flirting with police officers out of New York and talking about Ukraine.
No, well, you might be surprised. Well, but we do other things on the show too that are sometimes non-political, like, we have musical guests and sometimes there's some comedy, but it's something that's kind of, something that we've spent a lot of time over the past 2 years on the program that's really kind of faded into the background, largely because of Ukraine, of course, is COVID and where we are with COVID. And but we have talked about it a little bit, and it seems like we might actually be in a pretty good place with it, but we may have sort of failed upward, meaning that we did such a poor job in this country of repressing COVID-19 and mitigating it that we may have actually unwittingly fallen into some degree of herd immunity. This BA2 subvariant is extremely contagious, and it would appear that a lot of people in the United States have it, but hospitalizations continue to plummet, and things seem to be pretty good because of how many people have been vaccinated and how many people have already been sick. Omicron, of course, highly contagious, but not terribly severe. I think we might finally be in a good place with COVID, which is nice to be able to say. I hope that holds. It may not, as when winter approaches, but right now it's spring, and it looks like we might have a good summer, and of course, meanwhile, treatments are always improving, and access to treatments, and there's going to be new versions of vaccines, and I think we're in a good place with it. So we have been talking about that. You know, we try to balance the pessimism and the anguish over what's going on in Ukraine with some optimism on the COVID front. You know, some cautious optimism, but optimism. So we've been talking about that on the show.
Okay. I'm thinking in a much far less toxic way, but I still think we're going to see one more, something that gets identified as a wave. The thing I'm afraid of is that media's need to make everything an emergency is going to make it more than it is because it's going to be looking for headlines. But I do think that we're probably going to see another uptick, but far milder. And then it will kind of be in the history books.
Well, that's the thing. Another uptick, in theory, another uptick is fine if it is far milder. You know, as long as, I mean, look, if we're at a point where most people who get it, you know, the most they experience is a cold, then that's pretty good. I'll take that. You know, that's pretty good.
Okay, so I'm going to change conversations for a second. I'd like to have you comment on what you think about the viability of the Rick Scott 11-point plan that he'd like to make be the Republican platform for 2024. I
don't even know about it. This got past me. I'm sure it's. I'm sure. By the way, Rick Scott. Do you ever look at him and does he remind you of anyone? When I look at him, I think of Max Headroom. Remember Max Headroom?
Oh yeah.
Rick Scott reminds me, just nothing about the way that he speaks or anything, but just visually, he reminds me of Max Headroom.
Well, he does have title topics in the 11-point plan like colorblind equality, just so you know. And he promises to put income taxes on 50%, on the 50% of Americans who currently don't make enough to be taxed. It's part of his plan to grow America's economy, starve Washington's economy, and stop socialism. He also is touching the third rail of Social Security and wanting to make major changes in that.
That actually surprises me, given that he's from Florida. I mean, that's the one state where you really don't want to do that is Florida. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You don't want to ever talk about messing with Social Security in Florida. So that surprises me.
Yeah. Of course, the general thing is Mitch McConnell hates it. And he basically, and so does anybody in the know, it just basically looks like as more or less as an attempt to compete with DeSantis as the next satanic version of Trump. You know,
I don't know why they're bothering. Trump's probably going to run, and if he runs, he will definitely be the nominee. Maybe they're angling to be his Veep.
It could be angling to be his Veep, though DeSantis is definitely, I mean, this whole thing with him and Disney, I mean, that was a little surprising, but they're saying that enough small donors can replace the monies he lost from Disney, who is not donating money to him now after that whole fallout.
Yeah.
The don't say gay, which is just obviously is the one side of the form of it, but it's all a show. I mean,
of course, so it's a bunch of culture war nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's right up there with critical race theory. And who was it? Was it Brown in her interview or somebody else that I saw that they were being asked about critical race theory, and the person like snapped back and said, "Can you tell me anywhere where it's being taught?"
Oh yeah, that did come up with yeah.
And then, of course, Pete Dulce, who is just really the punching bag clown from Fox for Jen Psaki, who bests him consistently with I mean, I just watch those clips because they just warm the cockles of my heart. I'm like, okay, go ahead, Jen, go ahead. Yes, there's something satisfying about watching her respond to him.
Oh, no doubt.
Something so absurd about the comments. I mean, do you ever watch any of those? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. She was another one that called him out of, like, can you give me a list of kindergartens that teach sex education, Pete? Those are the boys. It's like, yes, it is. And that's why we're not going to have this conversation. Next question.
Yeah.
Now, I hear she's leaving to go start a show on MSNBC.
Supposedly, that's what they're saying. Yep, well, we already knew. She announced way in advance when she was going to be leaving. That she said very early on that she only planned to stay with the Biden administration for a set amount of time. Obviously, it's been more than a year, but whatever it was that she said, she let everybody know way ahead of time. But yeah, that seems to be the rumor. I don't know if she's actually confirmed it. I don't think she has, and it really wouldn't be necessarily appropriate for her to do so while she's still in her current job. But yeah, that's and I can imagine. I mean, look, she'll do great. She's good on television. She'll be good on television in that role if that's where she's headed. I can see it.
Yeah. Now, and this is still a couple of years out, and but last time Trump pulled a lot of strings to get states to not even run primaries for the Republicans, but just basically vote to make him the nominee behind closed doors.
Yeah.
He did it in South Carolina. He did it, I don't know, but there were several states that he did it in. Do you think that any of these people, and I'm thinking of DeSantis, have the cojones to challenge?
That's a great question. Probably not. Probably not. No, they're going to. They'll act like maybe they will, because DeSantis and Trump have publicly split on some things, and DeSantis has actually had the nerve, to say to be critical of Trump on some of his COVID policy. Because DeSantis is practically a COVID denier, but no, ultimately if Trump is running, if he announces and he's running, as long as the polling data holds up for Trump, they're all just going to get out of the way. No, they don't. None of them are going to stand up and try to. No, he will be the nominee if he runs, and they all know that, and they're not going to be interested in taking any damage, getting in his way. And no, they do not. When it comes to Trump, no, they have no balls.
Do you, at this point, and it's still a couple of years away, but we're coming to the end of the show, and so I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he could get reelected if he's not in jail? I mean, I still think there's a very realistic he could be in jail.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you run for president and be actively in jail? You can be an ex-felon. You can't vote, but you could get elected, is my understanding. There's nothing that stops you from getting elected just to be president of the United States as a felon. But I'm not sure that you can run while you're incarcerated. But I don't know.
Well, Lyndon LaRouche was on the ballot in the New Hampshire primary in '92 while in prison, and it wasn't his first time. But I don't know. No, but I think, I do think I think there's a very real, not only a possibility, but I will use the word danger. No, I think it is entirely possible that yes, Donald Trump will be reelected. Sorry, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. I had to swallow it back down, and it burns my throat. But yes, but I'm a professional, so I swallow it back down. But I think there's a very real danger. Trump will be reelected in 2024. Absolutely, it's entirely plausible.
Do you think Biden would run again?
Oh, yeah. I think he's going to hang in there, and I think he is going to run again. And I think Trump might beat him this time.
Okay. Well, you're just Mary Sunshine full of news. I will talk to you in another month. Find out about the Supreme Court Chief Justice and what actual powers does he have. Tune in a month from today on the first Thursday of May and find out what Matt has found out, because I'm not going to look it up. Matt, as always, thank you for joining.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kevin. Bye-bye.